Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Tony winner Brian Stokes Mitchell joins Hamilton star Renee Elise Goldsberry for Broadway in the Park at Wolf Trap on Friday night in a special co-production with Signature Theater. I spoke with Mitchell about his prolific Broadway career, from Ragtime to Kiss Me Kate, and even singing out of his New York City window during the pandemic. Hey, Brian Stokes Mitchell. Hey, thanks so much for joining us on WTOP.
Jason, it is my pleasure to be with you. Thanks for having me.
And we are talking because you are going to be doing Broadway in the Park. It's at Wolf Trap, co-production with Signature Theater, actually, at Wolf Trap. You and Renee Elise Goldsberry. And it's going to be Friday, September 3rd at 8 p.m.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for covering this, too. It's really great that, that shows are starting up again. People are getting out again. It's nice to see that I've been doing some shows up here in New York as well, at Lincoln Center, also outside. And people seem to be so happy to be out and hearing an orchestra. I was just in Ravinia just a few days ago as well, which is also outside. And it's I think we're going to have a really, really great time down there.
Oh, yeah, Wolf Trap is a gorgeous venue. The acoustics are great, and yeah, it's like we're lucky to have it's like a protected national park where no matter how much DC expands outward, that'll always be like a little natural oasis for great artists like yourself to come there. So all right, so it's going to be you and Renee Elise Goldsberry. Obviously, everyone remembers her from Hamilton and The Color Purple, all kinds of stuff on Broadway.
Yeah.
How exciting is it that you'll be sharing the stage with someone as talented as her?
Oh, I just love her. I've seen her in a gajillion things now. I think just about everything she's ever done. And we do benefits together. It's a very small community in New York, actually. And even if you've never done shows together, you always end up doing benefit performances together. You end up doing something together. So I just love Renee Elise. I'm really looking forward to sharing a stage with her. She's such a spectacular performer. And it's going to be fun kind of doing this for Signature Theater, too.
Oh, absolutely. Two institutions in the live event industry down here, Signature and Wolf Trap. How do you put together a set list for something like this? The Wolf Trap website, at least, says, we got Don't Rain on My Parade, the Schuyler Sisters, You'll Never Walk Alone. But do you and Renee get together, in New York or virtually, and we're on the phone and just say, hey, how do you shape what songs you're going to sing?
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of people think, we must have been rehearsing these shows for a long time, especially if you're doing something with a group of musicians or an orchestra as well. They must have been working on this forever. Generally, we get together when we get down there on the day of the rehearsal, and everybody runs it for the first time together. Sometimes I'll talk if I'm doing a concert with other people just to get an idea of how to balance out the material and who's doing what to make sure we're not doing like 50 ballads, or something like that. But generally, that's kind of the surprising thing of it when you're working with incredible musicians like that are going to be involved in this concert as well, and Renee Elise. It's kind of fun. You just kind of can pull it out of your hat as you're doing it, and that's what it's going to be because we're used to doing that, and we do it so much together as well. So and that people are always surprised to hear that because they think, oh, you must have been rehearsing on this for weeks. No, we just actually had two run-throughs of this, and that's pretty much it.
Great. Well, we're excited to see what you cook up for us. Well, whenever I have someone like yourself on, I love to hear how you got started in the arts to begin with. So I know you were born in Seattle, Washington, and wow, October 31st, Halloween of 57. Did you ever? What's it like having a birthday on? Did you always go trick or treating as a kid on your birthday?
Oh yeah, it's nice. Everybody dresses up in costumes for my birthday. It's great. It's funny because I always think, okay, the day people dress up and pretend to be other people. What else could I have done with my life but become an actor? So I think that was the first foray into that is when I just popped out on Halloween. So from Seattle I went to San Diego just for a few months when I was about 6 years old. My dad ended up getting a job for the Navy as a civilian. So I was raised overseas in Guam and the Philippines. And then when we got back to the United States when I was 14 years old, we moved back to San Diego. And that's really when I started acting. I was already singing. I was playing the piano since I was 6 years old and singing singing before that. But I started my acting studies and really delving deeply into voice lessons and everything else at that age, and worked at the Globe, all the theaters down in San Diego, and then moved up to Los Angeles. And I got very, very lucky because I was only up there maybe 6 months, already working in a repertory company, and I got in television kind of immediately. And the first television show that I ever auditioned for, which was called Trapper John M.D., I not only got it, but I've got, I hit the lottery. It ran for 7 years. So, that kind of launched me. But most people knew me from television at that point. They didn't know that I was a musical theater person and, a person from the stage. And so shortly after that, I ended up doing a show at the Pasadena Playhouse that took me to New York City. It became my first Broadway show. It didn't run very long, but it was a great way for me to kind of make my mark. And then I kept getting invited back, by Broadway producers and everybody, and one thing led to another, and now I think I've done 10 or 11 Broadway shows and about 4 or 5 off-Broadway shows, and I continue to do television, I continue to do concerts, I continue to do films, and all of that. I call myself the luckiest actor in the world because this is all I've done since before I left high school. I was already working in this profession, so I feel really, really fortunate to be able to keep doing that, and it's why I like to give back to different organizations, when they ask to come down, like Signature Theater or the Actors Fund. I would do a lot of charity work as well, and it's just been it's been a great life.
Wow, thanks for explaining that. Like a lot of our listeners, they know you as this big Tony-winning Broadway star, but they probably forgot that you actually started in TV. Trapper John M.D. That's like a MASH spinoff, right? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then
you did that. I think you did like a little spinoff of Roots: Next Generations, and actually I think before Broadway. Weren't you like a regular celebrity guest on a lot of those like pyramid game shows and stuff?
Yeah, that's what I was doing. Trapper John M.D. I did. I must have done 12 or 15 weeks of the pyramid and a whole bunch of other shows. I really like that show a lot.
Well, I mean, you got like the personality, charisma for it, man. It's perfect for that sort of setting. But I think you did, like you mentioned, I think you did find your calling when you came back over here to the East Coast to Broadway.
Yeah.
Tell me about your very first Broadway show. It was called Mail, right? In '88. How is that always hold a special place in your heart as your very first time?
Yeah, absolutely. That was the one that I was talking that started in the Pasadena Playhouse, and then we went to the Kennedy Center in D.C. And then that we took it to New York. It was a big hit in Los Angeles, and it did well at the Kennedy Center as well. But the year we came here, it was the year of what was else? That was Les Mis was that year, and Into the Woods, I think, was that year. There were just a whole bunch of really, really great shows around that time, and the show, didn't quite catch on here like it did in all the other places. But I ended up getting something called a Theater World Award, which to this day is maybe my favorite award I've ever gotten. It's an award they give to only about 15 people that are making their Broadway debut in shows. And I mean, anybody has gotten this award. It goes back, dozens and dozens and dozens of years. I think Marlon Brando got one. And, really, it's kind of one of those obscure awards that most people don't know about unless you're in the Broadway community. But those of us that are in the community know it and kind of revere this award. And that was kind of my stamp. And after that, I came back and I did Kiss OK on Broadway, which is David Merrick, the abominable showman, as many people call him as a producer. The last show he produced on his own, and then I replaced Gregory Hines in Jelly's Last Jam, and from there I went to Kiss of the Spider Woman, and then after that was Ragtime, and that's the show that really kind of launched my career from then on Broadway. Even though I've done 4 shows.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go into that a little bit because, thanks for mentioning OK and Jelly's Last Jam and Kiss of the Spider Woman, of course, Kander Nebb. But, like you're saying, Ragtime was the one, I think, that really put you on the map in Broadway. January 98, I think it opened. And you originated the role of Coalhouse Walker Jr., right? Like, what's it like that, you've seen so many productions of Ragtime since, but what's it like to know that, hey, I was the original in that?
It's really, really nice, actually. It's one of the sweet things about it has been seeing other people put their stamp on it. When I left the show, I left before the show actually closed because I'd been working on it for about 3 or 4 years at that time from the very first workshop that we had done. And then it ran, I think, another 6 months after I left here in New York. But I went to see the very last show as well, and I kind of wrote a long note to the cast. And basically what I said is, it's been a really great run, and as wonderful as it's been on Broadway, it's great to see it now getting into the hands of, I think, of the performers where it belongs, which is like high schools and colleges and community theaters. Because when a show was originally on Broadway, they don't let it out other places. They'll maybe start a touring company, but that's started by the same producer at that time. But that's why like you can't do Hamilton in your high school yet. And some of these other shows. Occasionally, people will do smaller versions of them and let those out. But that has been a really special show because I've gone to a bunch of other places and seen productions of it, and we Coal House walkers seem to have a kind of bond, and really anybody in that show to this day, that's still the most magical show that I've ever done. And I'll be singing some things from Ragtime when I'm down there as well.
Awesome. Can't wait. Well, so you get nominated for a Tony for Best Actor in a Musical for that. You don't win that time, but the win would come the following year, which is a big feather in your cap, the Best Actor in a Musical Tony Award for Cole Porter's Kiss Me, Kate. You played Fred Graham, right, in Petruchio.
Yes, yes. You've done your research. I'm impressed. I'm so impressed.
I mean, you kind of have to for this stuff, right?
You do, I guess, and it sounds like you're a theater and arts lover, so that always helps as well.
I'm a movie guy, music guy, theater, everything, man. So, tell me about. I mean, needless to say, Kiss Me, Kate. It's arguably, one of your career roles, but talk about just how much fun it was doing it, and then B, sitting there on Tony night and getting that win.
That was really fantastic. That was my, I think, second nomination. I mean, the thing is, and a lot of times I'll go and teach at classes, at universities and colleges. And one of the things that I always tell students is, hey, you're going to lose more in life than you win. And especially when you're an actor, that's true. I've lost more roles. I've lost more awards, all of those things. But I'm in it for the work. I love the process. I love working with other terrific, creative, wonderful artists. Maren Maisie was my co-star in that show, who since passed away a few years ago. She was also, we were in Ragtime together as well, and just a brilliant lady. She's actually the leading lady that I've worked with the most. I think we've done 5 shows together, so we had a great time and a great rapport on that show. Ragtime was kind of challenging, for a lot of reasons I won't get into now because it's too long a story. But especially for Maren, because she was in Canada, I ended up going to Los Angeles and opening the company out there, and that was very disheartening for that cast that was in Canada because we had all developed the show together, but I'd had it in my contract that I could open the show in Los Angeles. So we all rejoined when we came to New York to open the show here. But there was still, a lot of bad feelings, not with me, but I know with the producer and with some other people with the show. So, and oddly enough, when we did Ragtime, Maren and I, of all the people in the company, I felt I knew her the least because we were always on stage at opposite times. And the one time that we were on stage together, it was a scene about not understanding each other, just, well, who are you and what's going on here, so, and then our roles were so difficult. We didn't get a chance to go out and party, after the show because we just had to go home and be quiet and save our voice because you're doing 8 shows a week. So when we did Kiss Me, Kate, we said, hey, let's have the most fun ever. And we did. We laughed and it was a blast doing that show with her.
Great. Thanks for explaining all of that one too, and running into you guys' long time collaboration together. Then obviously, so you win for that. That must have been a joy. And more Tony noms follow. King Hedley II, Man of La Mancha. We don't have time to go into all of them, obviously, but I do want to know about. Didn't you do a special Carnegie Hall thing for South Pacific with like Reba McEntire and Alec Baldwin? Remember that because I think that aired around the country and down here in DC. Aired on PBS, I think.
It sure did, and that wasn't supposed to at first. We were just going to do it as a performance, and then somebody got a great idea and said, "Hey, let's take this. This could make a great PBS show," and we ended up making an album from it as well. And I was really happy because those shows. Those benefit shows like that. Also, like I was talking about, it's usually very last minute. I think we maybe put that show together in like 5 days. They're really quickly rehearsed, so you don't really know what exactly is going to come out. You're working with artists of the highest caliber, and the chances of it coming out well are pretty good. But when you're doing something like that, it's a one-off. You never know. Something could go terribly, horribly wrong. There was a point in that show where, because we're doing it on book, who's reading the script, although we have most of it memorized in our heads because you don't want to see people, with their heads down in a binder. But still, it kind of helps you keep track of where you are. And during one of the scenes, Alec Baldwin, the pages fell out all over the stage from his script. And I think he said, uh-oh, and everybody laughed. But they ended up keeping it in the show because it's a great reminder of, this is a live show, and what do people do? And just, seeing how he recovered from that and the cast recovered from that, it was really fun and funny. And audiences love those kinds of things, too, when something goes wrong in a show, when somebody goes up on lyrics or forgets a line or something like that, because they feel like they've seen something special and they're really seeing something, just for them. And that's what's great about the theater, too, whether it's a concert or a live show, is it really is a performance that's just for you in that time, in that space. It's never going to exist again. And I think that's why live theater is so important for people, because unlike a movie, the movie is going to be the same no matter where you see it, no matter when you see it. And it's also in 2 dimensions. So no matter where you sit in the theater, everybody's going to see the movie the exact same way. In a live theater, depending on where you're sitting, because you're watching something in 3 dimensions, the people sitting in the front right of the audience are getting a very different view than somebody sitting at the back left of the balcony, and then that show is going to be different every day as well. So it's a really special experience, and it's why I love live performing so much and why I love doing concerts as much as well, because first thing, it's not 8 shows a week, but also you get that live connection with an audience, and it's kind of one and done. It's this ephemeral thing that is literally just there for that time and space and no other.
Wow, I didn't know about the whole papers, Alec Baldwin's papers falling everywhere. I did not know.
Yes.
South Pacific was almost derailed, but hey, Alec, you've got to be carefully taught how to hold paper.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. But if anybody can handle that, Alec Baldwin, he's such a brilliant comic and actor, so he just did it with aplomb.
Oh yeah. At least in terms of that we covered the New York stuff pretty good, but in terms of DC audiences who might come out to Wolf Trap and Signature Theater production here, a lot of them might remember you from the Kennedy Center. Didn't you come down for like a Sweeney Todd thing?
Yeah, I call the Kennedy Center kind of my second home, actually, because I'm down there so much. I played Sweeney Todd with Christine Baranski. It was my Mrs. Lovett at a Sondheim celebration. We did, I think, eight of his shows in repertory down there, and that was one of the great theatrical experiences of my life. Not only doing this show in repertory with others, but having the opportunity to sit and see not only the shows themselves, but we were sharing rehearsal rooms. So, we would go on a break and then we'd move to the rehearsal room next door to us. We were in the Opera House at Kennedy Center. And there was Placido Domingo that he was conducting, working on I can't remember which opera that he was doing, but he was also singing and conducting it for those rehearsals as well, I think. And then in another room, they were doing Sunday in the Park with George and rehearsing that. So it was just mind-blowing for any theater nerd to be in a space like that.
For sure. Well, a lot of those same audiences will probably turn out to see it at Wolf Trap. But real quick, sorry to go out of order, but
it's all right.
To double back to New York really quick, I just remembered, didn't you? You were with you were on Broadway across Patti LuPone for the Almodovar adaptation, Women on the Verge of Nervous Breakdown. What was it like working with a legend like LuPone? Or she probably said the same thing. A legend like Brian Stokes.
Well, I love Patti, and one of the things I think we I've seen her in pretty much everything she's done. I just love her. She's just a real trooper. And I remember sitting down with her for the first one of the first interviews that we did with the press, and she and I did something together. And we were just talking, and it was like listening to yourself speak. We realized we had so much in common. I mean, I think we both intuited that anyway because of just watching the way that she works. But she's just so dedicated to her craft, and I just love her spirit. I love her, theatrical sense. It was like she was born in a trunk, kind of person, and her
Is that a bandwagon
work,
reference?
Yes. Thank you for that. Yes. But her hard work and her dedication and her just raw talent. I mean, she's just really an incredible force to be on the stage with and to watch and to just be around. I really love and admire her.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us. You've been generous with your time. I guess sort of in closing, just it's been a rough, very rough over year and a half.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that a few seconds ago when you were discussing just the beauty of live theater in 3 dimensions and versus 2 dimensions, all that kind of stuff. And you were saying people in a movie theater can't see the same view. And I was thinking, wow, like people haven't been in movie or stage theaters in a while here. So talk about how hard it was for Broadway, that you've made a living at that, but just how hard it was for a whole theater community to be just shut down on the sidelines, and also on the flip side, how exciting it is to finally be back.
Yeah, it's been very, very difficult. I'm also chairman of the board of the Actors Fund, and I'm on 2 other organizations. One's called Black Theater United, and another is called Americans for the Arts. And all of them, are involved in the arts, and especially with the Actors Fund, because it helps not only actors, but anybody who makes a living in show business or the performing arts, camera people, news anchors, radio people, costumers, designers, directors, ticket takers in times of need. And this has been a terrible time of need. For most people, I hope we'll see that the pandemic, when we look back a few years from now, probably started and ended, and it'll be probably a 2-year span when it really had a huge impact on people's lives. For those people in show business, the performing arts, it'll be more like 5 years, just because, most people are gig workers. People in show business, they think, oh, Tom Cruise and Denzel Washington and, all these people that are working and making a gajillion dollars. That is not the vast, vast majority of people are gig workers going from job to job. And people lost their insurance, people lost their homes, people lost their cars, their livelihoods. We have an emergency assistance fund at the Actors Fund. Normally in a year, we would give away $2 million a year to about 1,500 people. And these are people that are most needed. They need help paying for their rent, paying for a prescription, paying for food. In the last year, we've given away more than $22 million to more than 16,000 people. And that's going to be continuing because Broadway's not open yet. Bruce Springsteen's show opened, and a few more shows are going to be opening in a few more weeks. But the bulk of it is still closed down. It's kind of slowly starting to open. One of the really interesting things was, and it's funny because you mentioned all these things that I've been doing. I think of all the things that I've done, one of the things that more people have seen me do than anything is singing out my window over Broadway during the pandemic. I was sang The Impossible Dream out my window, and I was getting calls from Japan and from Australia because it became international news and became viral and everything. And I wasn't even planning on doing it more than one time. I was just going to do it as a one-off. But one of the things that really struck me was I was singing kind of in gratitude for all the essential workers, because at 7:00 every night, that's what New York was doing at that time. Everybody would stop what they were doing and clap and cheer and yell and scream and honk their horns and bang on pots and pans, as a way to thank all of the doctors and nurses and subway workers and people that were keeping the city going. But what was interesting for me as I ran into a neighbor about a week and a half after I ended up continuing to do it, because people kept saying, sing the song again from the street, when I was ready to close the window. And so I ended up singing it for about 2.5 months. But about a week and a half in, a neighbor stopped me on the street and said, thank you so much. This neighbor I never even met before. And he said, I come out every night to cheer on the essential workers, but we come out to hear you sing. I bring my wife out and my 2 kids. It's the one time in my day I feel joy. So it was a huge lesson for me about the power of live theater, because literally by the time I finished, there were hundreds of people that would come to gather on the street to cheer everybody on and then hear me sing. It was really incredible. And that does attest to that power of just people being together and experiencing something live in a group that is just for them, just in that moment. So it really is powerful, and I look forward to seeing the audiences down there at Wolf Trap when I come down, where I get to kind of spread some of that joy and love, and I'll sing that song in full too down there.
Wow, that's yeah. Take that, dear Evan Hansen. You're singing out your window. But that's but in all seriousness, though, I mean, it's really, I mean, it's probably not since, I hope I'm not overstating this, but probably not since like 9/11 have we seen the city of New York have to band together through such tragedy and loss of life and stuff. So it's really cool that you played a part from the heights of your window, screaming out, or singing out, that you played a part in helping heal. So that's great.
Yeah, I feel happy about that. In 9/11, Broadway closed only for about 4 or 5 days. And we thought that was terrible because that had never happened before. And here now we've been closed for more than a year. So it really is something. But it's great that there's organizations like the Actors Fund helping out, and then we're getting recognition from it. I got the key to the city of New York actually by the mayor, presented it to me a couple of weeks ago because of my singing out the window and also the work with the Actors Fund. And that I feel that key is for all of the people that have been helping everybody out.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's almost like two different types of tragedy. 9/11 was obviously so devastating, boom, impact, the loss of life, the explosions, the terrorists, you know what I mean? Like it was like a Pearl Harbor, but in real time, watching it. And then, but like you're saying, within a couple days or weeks later, we were told to go back, we're not going to let the terrorists beat us, go back to doing shows. Whereas here, it's almost been a long, slow death, to excuse a term, and it's just been tragic on a whole different level. So it's great that you have the fund that you've put together and you're helping everybody through it, singing out your window and financially, putting your money where your mouth is too. So
yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, we covered a lot of ground here. I really appreciate it. But everybody, come check out Broadway in the Park at Wolf Trap, co-production with Signature Theater. Brian Stokes Mitchell, he'll be with Renee Elise Goldsberry and a bunch of other singers on Friday, September 3rd at 8 p.m. So, hey, thanks so much, Brian. This was great. I was stoked to talk to you, and you delivered.
Well, I'm stoked to talk to you as well, and thank you, and thanks to everybody. I look forward to seeing people. I hope they come out. I mean, what we're trying to do now, I think Renee, Elise, and I, and all the artists in the show, is to kind of connect everybody back to their happy place, to the joy place, so we can feel like we're kind of getting life back to normal. This terrible COVID has always presented more questions than answers, and it still continues to do that. And we need to just keep working together, and so we can see the end of this thing through. But I look forward to spreading some joy and some happiness and some good feeling at this concert. And thank you so much for talking to me and talking about the arts and spreading the word about the arts and spreading your joy about it as well. I really, really, really appreciate that. Keep up your good work.
Oh, thank you. Well, maybe when this interview posts, we can both blare it out the window.
That would be great. Let's do that. You got a deal.
All right, sounds good. Brian Stokes Mitchell, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Jason.
Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.